Well, despite the advice offered by the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, as well as the Inspector General of Police, the Osun State Independent Electoral Commission on Saturday embarked on the conduct of local council election across 30 local government areas and one area office in the state. Although there was apprehension earlier in the day, the elections held with reports across the state indicating that early arrival of electoral officials at polling centers. Arise News correspondent Olushola Omilano filed this report.
The atmosphere in most of the polling units visited was calm. Security operatives were seen at different strategic places, controlling human and vehicular movements to prevent any breakdown of law and order. The state governor, Ademola Adeleke, cast his vote before 8 a.m. in his hometown at Unit 9, Ward 2, Sagba Abugunde, Ede North Local Government. After casting his vote, the governor admonished residents of the state to be peaceful during the election.
The process has been very peaceful. I made a broadcast to my good people of Osun State that this election should be peaceful, there should be no violence, because Osun State is a very peaceful, state. They should come out peacefully and vote and go back peacefully too. There should be no problem. We should not give them or any chance to say that there's violence here, there's violence. I don't want that, because we are a peaceful people, in Osun State.
Impressive turnout of voters were seen in some polling units, while some others were characterized by low turnout. Some of the voters attributed the low turnout to fear of possible outbreak of violence and absence of security officials at some polling units.
The turnout, just because people are fearing that they are fearing the people, that the thugs, that they may come. That is why the turnout is very low.
They are non-present here at each of our polling units. They were still, you can still see them mounting roadblocks here and there. So to some reasonable extent, so they are protecting life and properties, but not to the extent of coming to the polling unit here. So to protect the life of the electorate here.
It has been very fine and peaceful. We are holding our local government chairmanship election. This is Unit 8, Alajuwe 1 at the South Local Government.
In Ishokon, Irewole, Ayedade, and Borikwe local government areas of the state, voter apathy was pervasive. Staff of the Osun State Electoral Commission were seen with necessary materials attending to voters at designated polling units. Despite pleas by the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Lateef Fagbemi and Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetokun to the state government to call off the elections, Governor Adeleke had insisted on going ahead with the elections in compliance with the order by the Osun State High Court sitting in Ilesha, which ordered the State's Electoral Commission to proceed with the elections. The court also mandated all security agencies to provide security for the conduct of the elections.
In the meantime, 17 months after the Supreme Court of Nigeria handed down a ruling order state governors to hand off funds to local government administration, implementation of that order remains a mirage, not done yet. Various stakeholders, including lawyers, have expressed concern that the delayed implementation of the Supreme Court ruling was disrespectful to the Apex Court and represent a manifestation of how Nigerian government often tries to circumvent judicial jurisdictions. On July 11, 2024, the Supreme Court ordered the local government allocations must be paid to them directly. This is as requested by the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, in a suit at the court. For us to have a conversation on how this delay stands to impact the relationship between the three tiers of government in Nigeria and what must be done to avert another constitutional crisis, I'm now joined by a lawyer and a public affairs analyst, Fred Nzeakor. Great to have you on This Day Live.
Thank you, Prof. Good to be with you. Good to be with you.
So, how do we move in this confusion? AGF says don't do election, governor does it. There's a law stating that fund will go directly to local government. So we have the good and bad, a bit of chaos. But help me iron it out first before we go to your opinion.
Yes, Prof.
The AGF said don't do election.
Yes.
And is holding on to a Court of Appeal judgment
Yes.
that says the tenure of the immediate past, you can use that expression, local government chairmen had not been exhausted because they were more or less sacked by the current governor. They went to court and Court of Appeal said they should go back. But already by the time the Court of Appeal judgment had come out, the government has started putting in place machinery to hold a local government election. Now, that is the position of the AGF. Then the police tried to say, don't hold the election. Again, holding on his own argument on the argument of the Attorney General of the Federation. But the governor has said that he was going to hold the election, that that is statutory for him to do so. And the Supreme Court's judgment had said that funds to the local government must go to them directly for elected local government officials.
They must be elected.
They must be elected. So the leadership of local government must be elected. And the past one that was just disbanded were, in a manner of speaking, not elected. But they said they have not exhausted their tenure. So you now see the problem when one party leaves office and another party comes to office, there is this crisis of confidence, there is this crisis of continuity. And, but for whatever it is worth, one will always believe that it is always important to hold the election than to run the local government system using what you call the caretaker committees or the administrators or whatever name you call it. Any name other than election is not acceptable to the Nigerian system. And with this imbroglio, now the election has been held and the results are announced, and very soon those who won will be handed over certificate of return and they will be sworn in immediately.
Let us step back a bit and think and ask ourselves, a sort of broad question. What are we dealing with? It is a partisan issue that politicians are using their power against each other, or is it a system issue that we're not able to manage a system of the federal position, the court position, and the state position?
Yes,
let's look at it that
trying
way.
to understand it.
Yes.
We may be tempted to go back to the historifics of the local government system.
Let's do.
Yes, local government system in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Recall that pre-colonial era, the environment called Nigeria today were chiefdoms. In the manner of speaking, there was nothing like modern day government. Then during the colonial era, they tried to bring in their system of administration based on the indirect rule of Britain, following the British Whitehall system. And in 1950, there was this Eastern, of course, you know that in the colonial era, we had regions, the North, the West, the East, and then the Midwest.
The Midwest later.
Yeah, later, in 1963. But by 1950, we had the Eastern Nigeria Ordinance Law. Eastern Nigerian Ordinance that were in charge of local government system. It wasn't called local government, it was just called council. Nigerian Council Ordinance. In 1952, you had the one in the West, Western Nigeria Local Council Laws. In 1954, the one of the North was enacted, which was the Native Authority of the North. And by so doing, the running of the local system was in the hands of the authorities.
Of the local authorities.
Of the local authorities. Local authorities. They had reasonable autonomy. They could formulate their policies, spend their money the way they wanted, employ their staff, manage their welfare.
They were the government.
And they were the government.
They were the real
because
government.
they were really close to the people.
Yes.
And of course, we have seen that in every environment where the government is closer to the people, the government tends to be more effective. And people tend to get more dividend of governance. But after independence of Nigeria, with the 1960 Constitution, again with 1963 Republican Constitution, the tide started changing gradually. But what crippled the entire system was the military incursion into politics.
In 1966.
In 1966, whereby following the military interregnum, local government system became more or less almost an appendage of the state, almost like a branch of the state, whereby the administrators of each state had everything to do with local government, the way and manner it feels such because of the unitary system of the government. But yet, the hue and cry was still on that led the government to, in 1976, do a holistic reform of the local government system. Yeah. In fact, the modern-day local government system was bettered in that 1976 reform.
Yes.
It still had some level of autonomy, but not as much as it had
in the past.
Even with the reform introduced by the government of Ibrahim Babangida in 1989, it still did not give it that level of autonomy. But what has almost stifled local government system in Nigeria was the 1999 Constitution. So badly, because the relevant sections of the Constitution had literally handed over local government system to the hands of the states. Section 7 of that Constitution says the state houses of assembly will make laws for administration and good governance of local government system. Even though local government system, through their councillors, will make their own bylaws, but more or less, the essential laws to run the local government remains with the local with the states through the state house of assembly. Section 162 of the same Constitution had also made it worse by allowing the creation of state and local government joint account. So, in a manner of speaking, the states are holding the local government through legislative forces,
and
through financial manipulation, and even through administrative manipulation. Because I use the word manipulation because everything they do is to suit the nuances of the man in power at the state level, i.e. the governor. Recall that local government gets close to 22%, 22% from the federation account. Each time that money comes to the local government, it is put in state and local government joint account. That account has never been demerged. Efforts made to demerge such account, because it is constitutional issue, will always be frustrated by the governors. Because before you amend it, at least 1/3 of all the 36 states House of Assembly will give a concurrence with joining to 2/3 concurrence of the National Assembly. So it has always been frustrated by the governors. Each time you try to untangle the hands of the governors of local government, it will always fail. And that was what led the Attorney General to go to court.
Yes.
To say, oh, Supreme Court, because this money is coming from Federation account, get by way of judicial pronouncement, give authority and autonomy to this local government. So, yes, they have autonomy on paper, but in practice, Prof, I can tell you that as long as they don't have political autonomy, they don't have legislative autonomy, the financial autonomy is still suffering from the clutches of the state governors.
And that is the big picture.
And that is the big picture.
So we have a system.
That is exactly where we are.
Let us go into this Osun State, this specific one.
Yes.
In this case, so we have the Attorney General of the Federation and the Inspector General of Police saying don't hold the election. The governor saying we shall hold the election. Actually, he has held the election.
Yes.
Let me ask you a very direct question. Two questions, actually. Yes. Number one.
Yes.
Who is defending democracy and local government autonomy? Is it the federal government or the state? Because, these are two distinct positions. So who is the friend of local autonomy and democracy? And number two, what is a different way to have approached this kind of, should we call it imbroglio? I'm trying to look for a good word, but my mind is not so kind, but go ahead.
Yes, but I think both are not defending democracy. Both are not defending democracy at local government level. Because in times past, the problem had been, how do we extricate the local government system from the influences of the federal and from influences of the state? At a point, when you drive away the federal, the state will come in.
Yeah.
But don't forget that the 6 area councils in Abuja, in the FCT, are under the federal government. The question is, how does their own individual funding get to each area council?
Since they're not.
Since, without the hands of federal government. The same way, all the local government in the states, at the state level, they all have the manipulations and the hands of the governors, directing and deciding how the funds are utilized, to the extent that at a point, the governors took away from the local government certain revenue generation activities. Look at things like a tenement rate. In some states, in most states, tenement rate is almost obliterated. They now use land use charge.
Yes.
The local government used to collect tenement rate, but the state governors will now bring in law to the House of Assembly, remove the land use charge, the tenement rate, replace it with land use charge, and then
goes to
the state level.
No
and
more
they
to
say,
the local government.
And they say from there, they will determine what goes to each local government.
But wait, Nzeakor, let me take you back to something. We asked a question. We said, federal government is saying one thing, state is saying another thing.
Yes.
I asked you, who is the friend of local autonomy and democracy? You said none of them. So whose interest are they pursuing if none of them is pursuing the thing at the center? So what does the federal government want, or what is their hidden or manifest interest?
I tell you,
and what is the interest of the state government?
I tell you why I said none of them.
Yes.
Because the local government is being the government at the grassroots. It is through that local government system that every political party in power gets to the grassroots. If the federal government is defending the interests of the local government, the federal government is run by a political, has a political party that is backing the federal government. If the federal government wants the interest of the local government to be alive, the federal government will now go through their own, the political party in power at the center will go through their governors to give life to the local government system. And today, the party at the center is in the majority in most states. So why would the same problem be happening all over the place? Why would there not be a single local government election that one can say is credible?
It's fair.
It's
okay,
fair and credible. So as it is more or less, if the federal government wants to save the local government, then let's restructure the polity such that the hands of the states will no longer be on the head, on the neck of the local government.
Okay, so
it is not just to make pronouncement.
Make that pronouncement. Okay,
it's not enough.
And that's what I really want you to spell.
Yeah, it's not enough.
In this specific case, you're a lawyer, and you have gray beard. So you could be Attorney General of the Federation, you could be the governor of Osun State, or at least a governor of any other state, given your red cap, maybe not Osun State, any other state. But directly to the point, if you were governor of Osun State or the Attorney General of the Federation, how would you act differently from the way these two gentlemen have acted?
I tell you that if the Attorney General of the Federation is of the same political party with the governor of Osun State,
no, but they're not.
There wouldn't be these issues.
No, let's
keep politics aside.
If we were in Brazil,
right?
We're in Nigeria.
Yes.
They're not.
They are not.
In this specific case, what would you do? What would you do differently from them?
Because the only thing that Attorney General has said, don't hold the election.
Yes.
Because the only basis he's saying that is for the other people to be returned back to their seats.
That is his real interest.
There's no
argue.
There's no other.
You argue that he wants to bring
there's no other reason. So that the other people who obviously are of his own political leaning will come back to the seats. And of course, the governor who is of a different political leaning said, no, I'm going to hold another election following the Supreme Court order that every money going to local government must go to elected chairmen. How well those chairmen are elected is a different ball game. That one is a story for another day. But the fact
do you realize, Nzeakor, that we're in a bit of a trouble here? If we cannot envisage a system where different political parties can cohabit, then we're in trouble. What do we do?
But that is the bane of our democracy. That is the bane of our political system, where politics is not about governance, politics is about holding on to power. Otherwise, why wouldn't there be a credible election at local government level? Can any governor in Nigeria beat his chest and swear that he has had a credible election? None. Not even one.
Not even one?
Not even one.
Out of 36?
Not even one. None. Each time any party at the seat of power at the state will be the party that will clean out between 96 and 99% of all the votes, of all the victories announced. Go and check out Osun's own. Everything cleared. 32 over 32. Check out any other place. The whole local government, at best, we will leave one councillorship position to another party that the man will enter the camp and join the ruling party. So there is no governance at local government level. There's no election at local government level because of this ping-pong affair that is going on at that level.
So what are we going to do about this? I mean, what's the way out?
Well, the way out is, one, we restructure the polity. is a tall order, but that is the only way out.
That is the only way out.
Yeah, that's the only way out. We
restructure it in one sense.
We restructure the polity, ensure that, one, the issue of, for example, the derivation system needs to be addressed. The federal structure needs to be addressed. As long as money goes to the local government and that money is being hijacked by the state governors will always not allow it. Today we have been struggling to amend Section 7 and Section 162. Almost every National Assembly since 1999 had made efforts to amend those sections, but up to today, there has always been a problem. Now, Supreme Court has given a judgment. They have found a way to circumvent it. Because if you say it must go down, the money must go to local government chairman, fine. Who has placed local government chairman on seat? Did he win an election? He didn't win any election. And he knew that his name was submitted and an announcement was just made out of the charade called the election. And he has 100% loyalty to the government. You remember in Ogun State, sometime one local government chairman wanted to free himself.
I knew you were going to say this.
Yes, wanted to exert his authority.
I knew you were going to make his example.
What happened at the end of the day? He had to kneel down and beg. His colleagues had to come, kneel down and be begging the governor. Is that federalism? So that tells you that the hands of the governors are strongly fisted on the neck of the local government system.
But let me make a proposal and a question to you. Do you think it would change anything if all of a sudden we had high flyers or, very heavy politicians or public figures go to contest at the local government level? Instead of going for governorship, you take somebody who himself can dominate his local government area that you cannot push around. Do you think that will help?
Obviously, that will help, but how would he do that?
Well, we send
because
you.
Of the nature.
Instead of you going to be governor, we send you to local government
because
level.
Of the nature of politics.
And you go with this, your
because of the nature of politics we play here. The nature, it is... They lay hold on it from the credo. They lay hold on it from the credo. For you to even win and get the ticket of the party, the governor must determine that to a very large extent. The State Independent Electoral Commission, none of them is independent. And lest we begin to say, in fact, that was what had led some people to advocate that let INEC, which is the national, conduct election for local government systems. That way, more credible.
But is that not against federalism?
But that is the issue. And that's when we talk about restructuring. Because it's against the federalism, because you cannot come and conduct an election for local government bypassing the states. Because ordinarily, the states are supposed to be in charge of local government system. So how do we now do it? We have to come back again to that quest for a restructured polity so that we'll be able to get out of this mess. Because I call it a mess because there is no governance at local government level. All the responsibilities given to them in the Constitution and the fifth schedule, they are unable to handle any of them, including ordinary refuse management of parks and gardens, all. Primary health care, they are unable to do all that. Primary education, they are unable to do all that because of the governors intentionally will handpick their yes men and women that will not have the courage to raise a voice against them.
The picture you paint, save for the solution of restructuring that you provide, is not a very encouraging picture. We're moving towards some local government elections very soon. Yes. Are you hopeful, and what do you think needs to be done before then? As long as the structure it is the same way it is today, there's no hope for local government system to be alive in Nigeria. As long as we are still seeing what we are seeing today. So your three areas are administrative autonomy, legislative autonomy, and financial autonomy. Financial autonomy. And they also need political autonomy because he who pays the piper dictates the tune. The governors are holding on to that. They make you the chairman of local government, then you'll be 100% answerable to the governor and not to the people. Because the people didn't elect you in the first instance. The election was always a charade. And that's why I challenge any governor to come and tell me that he has conducted a free and fair local government election in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Fred Nzeakor, although you didn't give us a lot of things to be hopeful about. But at least you spoke the truth.